get that recording. Yep, we're recording. So, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Welcome, each and every one of you. First of all, before we start today, I'd like to just take a moment to acknowledge. I'd like to acknowledge Dr. Ron Rudin and Steve Rudin for bringing us Havening, for creating and designing and sharing the Havening techniques with the globe. Thank you both so very much. It's because of you and because of your research and your techniques and your love of this and shared it that we're all here today on this global platform in this time of need. So acknowledgements to Dr. Ron Rudin and Steve Rudin. I'd like to also acknowledge Doug O'Brien. Doug O'Brien, a Havening trainer who's based in New York City. It's his initiative that's got us started on this weekly practice in this worldwide practice group. So thank you, Doug. I can't quite see where you are at the moment, but acknowledgements to you. I'd like to also acknowledge Dr. Kate Truitt. Kate is a neuroscientist, a clinical psychologist, and of course a Havening trainer. And I'd like to acknowledge her for sharing with us her time today to talk to us about her area of expertise. I know at this time, each and every one of us is really busy. So in particular, Kate, I'd just like to acknowledge you for sharing your time and your expertise with all of us across the globe today. And I'd like to acknowledge each and every one of you, every single one of you that is here today. I know for some of you it's very late at night, for some of you it's the early hours of the morning. So I really acknowledge your commitment and your dedication to being part of this supportive group and being part of Havening, and for everything you're doing in your respective families, bubbles, communities to share Havening and to heal. And my last acknowledgement is to everyone, past and present, that has supported us in being here together today. I just want to give a little bit of the format today. We're gathering for 2 hours, give or take. In a moment, I'm going to be handing over to Kate, and Kate is the keynote speaker today. And I will leave Kate to explain how she wants to run her group and how she's going to engage with questions and answers. After Kate, we'll just do a short self-havening practice, really around setting intention, and then we'll be moving into practice groups. So we'll be using breakout rooms and we'll be moving into practice groups for some havening around about maybe 20 to 30 minutes, depending on time, looking at building internal resources, which I think is going to be something that will serve us well going forward. As I mentioned, there is those 2 reaction buttons at the bottom where you can put your little smiley hands up or you can clap. And of course, there is a chat room. If you've got a question for Kate or Ron, you can actually put it in the chat room as well, and she'll be able to check those, or they, sorry, will be able to check those. So that's all I really want to say at the moment. Again, I just want to acknowledge each and every one of you for being here today. Kia ora, and I will hand over to Dr. Kate Truitt. Thank you.
Thank you. And actually, and Francis, I'd like to lean on you a little bit to provide some support with monitoring the chat. Rebecca's one of my associates who's on this call, and she usually does it for me. But if you see a question pop up, my dual processing is not on par as good as it used to be.
That's okay.
So if a question pops up specifically, if you could just kind of flag me, because I have you front and center in the middle of my screen. Then if you just pop your hand up, I'll pause and go and just check in with you with whatever questions come up.
Yep, I'll do that. Wonderful. Thank you.
That would be fabulous. So it's such a joy to be here, and I mean, a joy to be part of this community, really. And one of the things that I really pride myself in having developed over the course of my life, and Havening has really created the opportunity for me to cement this, is to find the silver linings in every difficult moment. And this right here is one of those silver linings. The gathering of this incredible community and the sponsoring of all of us to be very intentional about coming together in these times of really difficult strife. And I'll talk a little bit more in the course of this talk about, you know, how this is really antithetical to who we are as humans. And if you listen to my telecommuting talk, you heard me speak a little bit about that last week as well. But my goal today is to really unpack health anxiety, what it means, what it looks like today, and this very specific arena, and how we can incorporate Havening to help treat health anxiety. And for me, prevention is the best course of action right now. What's happening in China as people are slowly evolving back into the world. rates of agoraphobia, rates of social anxiety and panic have gone through the roof. And that's because of the fear bubble that's been told to all of us, and that we're all encoding around what it means to now be in a group of people. And we are attachment based. And so when our own species is actually fundamentally dangerous to us, our brain doesn't quite know what to do with that. It's almost like a little friend, emotional brain. And, you know, the amygdala, if you've heard me speak before, you know, I lovingly call her Amy. Amy just cannot integrate what's happening in the world around us right now. And so my goals today are really to, you know, do a review of my favorite little brain drawing. Of course, I'm going to start us out with a calming, soothing exercise, because a little regulation always helps our thinking brain think better. And then take the idea of how our emotional brain and our thinking brain are coming together, and what obstacles or barriers might be showing up for them as they try to make sense of this current situation. And I just highlighted a couple a moment ago. And then we'll unpack specifically health anxiety, what it means, and what it used to mean, hypochondriasis, and what it means specifically now, which, as a neuroscientist and looking at brain functioning, I think there's some very real nuances that we need to be mindful of when people are coming in with what would have been hypochondriasis or, you know, health anxiety. And, you know, then I just want to spend a moment and talk about the Havening Hug Hack, which is something that I am just sponsoring the bejesus out of for everybody. And I'll talk a little bit about what that was. It has not that much to do with health anxiety, but I think it's such an awesome hack for all of us. And then we'll do a lovely little meditation. I just uploaded a recording of this, so it's on our YouTube channel. I'll post it to the Facebook page, but it's a script that Dr. Ronald Rudin put together around COVID. I added a little couple tweaks to it and some music. And Paul McKenna did another version of this, but it's for our frontline workers, and we are all frontline workers. You know, even if we're not in the hospitals, and for some of us, thank goodness we're not, and I know I have a lot of colleagues who are, but our brains, our systems, our bodies, even through a screen, we're holding space for the trauma that other people are witnessing in this moment while living in a moment of very real trauma of ourselves. And I know I have lost people already. I know I will continue to lose colleagues. I'm sure many of you have as well. And, you know, we are all going to be in a deep state of loss. And yet, because of our vocation, because of our spiritual calling to do this work, we need to be so mindful to tend to ourselves as we're tending to others. And so I want to really encourage everybody, and as you know, if you've heard me speak before, I really highlight the importance of integrating this information, not only for the care that you provide, but also to strengthen your acknowledgement and your depth of connection with what's happening in your body in this moment. I think that's one of the most powerful gifts of Havening, is it's not just about healing others. You know, EMDR is wonderful. I've trained in EMDR for many, many years, but I need somebody else there doing the EMDR with me. With this, I can really do my own empowered healing work. And so it's not just about being in service of others, it's also about being in service of ourselves. And so I like a conversational experience. So as we highlighted, if you have a question or a thought that's patient-centric or self-centric, I encourage that, you know, and jump in the chat box or wave your smiley hand up, and, you know, let's welcome that into these conversations. But first, speaking of smiley hands, let's take a moment and just engage in this is a smile exercise that I created a long time ago. And this is actually my horse. He's an adopted racehorse off the track. He's a total sweetheart, and he actually smiles. And one of the things that I think is phenomenal about our brain is that we are able to find, if we seek it, a positive moment in every moment. We just have to be mindful of the intuition and the intention of going there. So let's start with a gentle breath in, and just allowing your mind and your body to sink into the chair or the space that's holding you. And just being curious about what your breath feels like in this moment. Noticing, what does it feel like in your mind and your body, moving into relationship with the very real physical experience of this world. Greeting whatever shows up, welcoming it, and even thanking it for the information that that data is giving you. And I'd like to invite everybody to start to apply the self-havening touch. Hands, face, arms, in any order that feels comfortable for you. And invite your mind to start to drift back across this day. Or yesterday.
Oh, here we go.
If it's 1 a.m. or even last week. And I'd like to invite you to be very intentional about seeing if you can find a smile. It may have been a smile when you jumped on this call, somebody you haven't seen in a while. It may be, like this photo, a smile from a beloved animal. Perhaps a child or a friend. Maybe a neighbor that you haven't been able to smile and wave to in some time. And once you've found your smile, invite that smile to come front and center, to be the center of everything that you focus your attention on right now. Invite that smile to be the most important piece of data in this world, in this moment. Noticing what shifts and changes as you focus in on this smile. Welcoming a gentle breath in and enhancing that smile. And a slow, easy exhale. And notice as you focus in on your smile, if a part of you wants to smile back. The part of you is saying, hi, smile, and greeting it. Notice if your smile has a color or an energy or a warmth. And gently breathe in whatever energy that smile encapsulates for you. And notice, does the smile have a message? If that smile could talk, what would it say to you right now? And what would you share with that smile? And take one more gentle breath in, sinking into that energy, and invite the smile to stay present with you. Noticing how you have a neural network for this smile, that you're able to pull it forward with intention and connect and engage with it anytime you want. And thank that smile for its presence. And when you're ready, one last gentle breath in, noticing your feet on the ground, the structure supporting your mind and your body. And let's slowly, gently come back to this moment.
I'm going to jump in for a second.
Yeah.
I must admit I was doing this smile, and then I thought of something funny. The funny thing was that the tulips are in bloom, and my tulips are smiling.
And what do you notice in your mind or your body when you see the tulips?
Well, that just gives me a little chuckle. That's all. The tulips can do many things. We can see their beauty and we can feel their beauty.
Yes. Thank you. That brought me a chuckle. I love that. Yeah, the smiles are so abundant. And just a gentle reminder, if everybody could put themselves on mute. If you don't see a little red microphone.
239.
There we go. This specific incident happened after this photo. I work with performance horseback riders, Grand Prix Olympians, and I was working with a young woman, an adolescent actually, who took a particularly nasty fall. And so we were back at the barn and we were doing some havening to support her system and regulating so she could get back on the horse. Luckily, she was safe. She wasn't harmed, but her brain was definitely really freaked out. And one of the other young children, she's about 5 years old, ran up and grabbed my shirt and started pulling on it and was like, Kate, look up, look up. And there was Atlas smiling down over us. And it was one of those incredible moments of we're all there havening, a small group of us havening together, supporting this young woman. And then we all look up and there's this horse just smiling at us. And it just reminded me that even in the difficult moments, smiles are always there. And the value and the significant value, but in focusing in and finding those moments, finding those tulips, and also creating space in our day-to-day life. And I think this is more so now important than ever before, where we have the stimuli around us that generates the smile. Yeah. And being really intentional about anchoring ourselves regularly in those moments, just as we anchor ourselves regularly in havening. And I'll talk a little bit more about why, even more so now, that's so important. We're going to shift into a little bit more of a lecture mode now. And so just a gentle reminder or a review of how our little friend Amy can really get in the way of our thinking brain and spin these stories that cause so much disruption for us. And, you know, as we all know, our thinking brain is really new in terms of the evolution of the human species. Our mammalian and our primal brains have been around a long time. You know, lizards have them, monkeys have them, dogs have them, horses have them. But our thinking brain is such a tiny little part of our brain experience. And yeah, it's so deeply profound, right? We've got these thumbs and we've got this thing, and that's why we're on Zoom, because our species has been able to generate and cultivate this amazing experience. But when a threat shows up, the only thing that matters to our brain is making sure we survive. And so our brain has been designed with this amazing but kind of wacky experience that in this day and age is a little bit of a flaw at times. And that experience is that Amy receives data 4 times faster than our thinking brain. Now I'd like to invite Ray to blink. Okay. That's 4 times faster than your thinking brain is going to receive data. So your thinking brain is the blink. 4 times faster than that blink, your survival brain is going, is there a threat here? And is assessing to try to make sense of what's happening in the world around us. It's really, really, really fast. And what's important to note there is that our thinking brain does not have the ability to have a reasonable conversation with our survival brain at all. Our thinking brain goes, nope, I remember that. Our Amy goes, I'm just going to stick with my usual languaging. Amy goes, yeah, I remember that from maybe when I was 5 years old. And our thinking brain, what I like to call is our 2020 self, not a part of the conversation. Because as soon as Amy starts to experience a threat or a concern, she hijacks us. And depending on the level of the threat or the concern, the less and less ability our thinking brain has to come on board. And again, going back to incredible gifts of havening, what does havening target? Well, we all know what's the original name, the amygdala depotentiation technique. So havening directly interacts with our little friend Amy, says, hey, Amy, cool it, we're cool. And when I'm doing my self-havening, I like to think of, I'm giving myself a nice warm hug and going, Amy, we got this, chill, babe, it's cool, hang out, it's okay. And we're slowly calming her down. But this 4 times faster hijack is so important because it pulls us out of our thinking brain, as we know, but it also then loops in our thinking brain into creating worst case scenarios. And if anybody is of my generation or earlier, so Gen X in the house, we're used to actual books that were also had those choose your own adventure component. And I like to think about the fact that Amy is the choose your own adventure expert. she's going to say, we are going to go down this trail or this trail. And no matter what we choose to do, we're going down a trail of fear thinking. And it just depends on what content or complex content or the context that it's lighting up within that neural network. So our goal right now, when we're looking at the coronavirus pandemic, is not only to be mindful for ourselves and our clients that their brains are doing this decision tree process around survival stimuli, but that we need to be really, really proactive to keep Amy calm. You know, if anybody saw my post on the Facebook page, somebody was talking about the idea that they got somebody down to a 2 or a 0, but then the energy rebounded right back up to 5. And, you know, we started having a conversation around, what if right now it's okay to be at a 5? What if that's not unusual? And that's actually important to have that vigilance. And I wish I could remember who posted the post, because it was such a beautiful conversation about the fact that this was a nurse who is walking back into a dangerous situation on a regular basis. And so for her to be at a 5 may not be safe right now, because she needs that level of vigilance. And I know, Ron, that was one thing that you added to that post, was this is understandable for somebody who's walking into a medical center. And we are living in really, really complicated times. My sister shared with me this morning that there's a pop-up morgue a block away from her daughter's preschool in New York City. And I was just like, oh, I can't even imagine here in LA. We're so spoiled, but I know we will. I mean, I know, and I hate to say that, but there's a really good chance we'll get there soon. And I know worldwide, we're all having our versions of this. So Amy has good reason to be a little freaked out right now. And we all have in our hands, courtesy of Ron and Steve, a ninja hack. And so the more we use that ninja hack for our own health and well-being, the more we can help Amy get out of the way of that 75 millisecond, or that 4 times faster than our thinking brain hijack, to regulate our system and calm down. So yes, Frances.
Just to let you know, I saw somebody called Joy had her hand up, so I don't know if Joy had a question or not for you about that particular slide that you had, Kate. Joy, if you do, just take yourself off mute.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if people are getting audio problems. Is anybody getting audio problems?
No, as you're speaking though, there's a lot of interference, though. I am hearing that from you specifically.
Okay, I mean, I just was having trouble hearing you, and I just wondered if everybody else was having difficulty.
Yeah, no, thank you for checking in. And it will be recorded, everybody, just so it will also have the recording. So let's unpack what health anxiety has historically meant, and some specific nuances that I, in my creative power as a psychologist and a neuroscientist, have integrated into what's happening right now. So historically, health anxiety was what we would all recognize as hypochondriasis, which, somebody would say, oh, they just have hypochondriasis. They're a hypochondriac, which is basically they're hyper fixated on an ailment related to health. And, so much so they developed an obsession. They're going to doctor because they're looking for some sort of indication that what they're witnessing or experiencing is a validation of the health symptom. Now, hypochondriasis is frequently, not always, but quite frequently connected into a psychosomatic experience. And so we've had people who have had a cardiac incident in the past who develop hypochondriasis because they believe that they're always on the precipice or about to have a heart attack. And we see that hypochondriasis plus panic disorder as comorbid conditions frequently. It can be somebody who has had a sexual assault and they have a physical representation of that physical experience that happened during the assault that now continues to result in somatic experiences of pain, of fear or concern or over focus, which then they seek a doctor's kind of script or check off to say, hey, this is what's happening in your body. So hypochondriasis is frequently a psychologically oriented experience with a physiological manifestation. Now, in today's world with COVID-19, and Ron, jump in if you would like to add anything to that, of course. In COVID-19, what we're seeing as health anxiety is this persistent fear, anxiety, or panic around having the coronavirus, as well as this idea of somebody sneezes, or if I touch something. I mean, I even literally going into the offices to pick up the mail the other day, I casually walked up to the elevator and pushed the button before I realized a million other people had pushed that button. And then I'm holding my hand out in front of me because I can't remember if I touched my face after I pushed the button. So I'm literally walking like this until I got into the office and could wash my hands. You know, and I understand, like, my thinking brain's going, Kate, you're absolutely bonkers. But my little friend Amy was going, doesn't matter. You got to wash your hand. Right. So I slot all of that under this new umbrella of health anxiety. And even more so that these common symptoms of waking up with allergies, you know, it's spring. I keep joking, like, if only this had happened in the fall, when it wasn't the middle of allergy season, you know, people's nervous systems might be calmer, because I have allergies, and every time I sneeze, people look at me. I got a lecture the other day from, you know, actually Steve Ritter, and he's like, don't you cough in front of me? I'm like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. Right. And I don't know if any of you have had that experience where somebody you love or care about sneezes or coughs, and your brain goes into hyperdrive, or you sneeze or cough and your brain goes into hyperdrive, because all of a sudden the system's going, do I have the coronavirus? And then it extends out to tribe and community, because that's what our little friend Amy does. She's not just focused on us, she's focused on the overarching world around us. That's actually, we have two amygdalae. The left amygdala is community focused, and the right amygdala is self-survival focused. And so she's assessing threat to self and the loved ones that we care about. And so we sneeze, and then all of a sudden, real conversation my husband and I had, I sneezed, and he's like, honey, do you need to go live in the guest room for a while? And I was like, I would really like to be mad at you right now, but unfortunately I know too much about fear. Because his little brain was going, I love you, don't get me sick, and I love you. Right? So we're all navigating different versions of this. And I slot that under this health anxiety experience with these very new physiological components. I don't know if anybody's woken up with a sore throat lately or feeling more tired. I had a patient call me in a panic because she felt headachy waking up. And then I asked her, I know she's working with a primary coping skill of wine. And I said, well, how much did you drink last night? She said, well, two bottles of Merlot. I said, well, do you think you might have a headache because of those 2 bottles of Merlot? Oh, yeah, okay. That might make sense. Have some water and some charcoal, take some Tylenol and go to bed, right? But rather than going, oh, I have a hangover, her little friend Amy spun a story of death immediately. And so
Hey, Kate, can you hear us? Can anybody else hear Kate?
I cannot.
Like
Well, she's frozen.
No, I can't hear.
She's frozen with fear of corona.
I was going to say, she might just join us and come back on again. Yeah, I thought it was myself. Hold on, we'll have to refresh. Yeah, so I'm sure she'll. Oh, maybe that's her coming back on. I'm not muting her deliberately. I presume she's muted. Right, and while we wait for Kate to come on, if you've got anything that you'd like to add to what Kate was talking about in that moment. Yeah, so Kate's obviously looking like he's coming back on. Oh, there we are. Right, Kate. You're good.
So I joke I keep sharing with my clients. I don't know if anybody else is experiencing this, but I keep saying the internet is stressed to its max degree. The internet's amygdala is also freaking out right now. And
Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you. Yeah, I can.
Yeah, we can hear you. We just can't hear her.
When she's back on now. In the Dublin conference, I'm talking on fear, and how it and the pathway as a pathway to survival. And it starts off obviously with awareness, then vigilance, then flight, freeze, and fight, and then panic, and then thanatosis. And these all have interesting biological implications. And so we're going to, it's a nice hour-long discussion about fear in general. So those who want to join in Dublin will hear about this. It's really, it's absolutely fascinating, the different levels of how fear progresses over the course of time.
Mm.
It's not just all hypervigilance.
Thank you.
In fact, we certainly for first responders in the hospital, they have to have some vigilance at all times in any case. If they don't, they're in trouble. So vigilance is not a bad thing.
Yeah, it's a good point you made earlier, wasn't it, about that SUD could be much higher for those people because they have to have hypervigilance, like, you know, frontline responders, emergency responders, military, police. You do have to have that slightly heightened level.
Right. People pay the price later on after they are off the grid, so to speak, for those things. But vigilance is much more useful than hypervigilance unless it's really an immediate issue. Maybe it is true. That's why the frontline workers, and I do believe they're soldiers in this battle, just like the Army and any other people who go into battle. And in fact, the piece I'd written, which Kate was using, was written for excuse me, was written for military, but I view our nurses and doctors and physical therapists and respiratory therapists as soldiers in the battle of against Corona and the COVID disease.
Good. Thank you, Dr. Ron. I'm just going to see if I can get where Kate is. Kate, can you hear us at all? Oh, okay. We might be going back. I think Kate's obviously just dropped off and maybe is going to just reconnect with us. I don't know if can anyone see her online? I'm just going through. Kate, are you there? No, I think she's going to be coming back. Oh, here we go. We'll just admit Kate. Hopefully she'll be fine and be back on board now. Kate, can you hear us? No. Oh, yep, yeah, she's there. I just saw her somewhere.
Okay, I'm going to try this again, and if it pops off again, I'll kick my husband out of the office and hijack his computer.
Good to see you back.
Yes, thank you. Sorry, everybody. All right, yeah, so just as an aside, my husband is a big key, and that's one of the things he keeps cautioning against is the internet has never had this much stress on it ever. And so, you know, just like we're all doing our best, so is our friend, the internet. Okay, we're gonna pop back up here. So I appreciate everybody's patience. And I think I'm still connected. Are we still connected? All right.
Yes.
Perfect. All right. So I don't like fear stimuli, but for how many people is this now a fear stimulus? Yeah. So back in November, this image would have meant nothing to our amygdala at all, right? But now this is something that has been shown to us over and over and over and over again as a piece of data that could actually kill us or kill somebody that we love. And so how quickly our fear brain is integrating information. This is that threat content piece that Ron talks about. Now, what's so interesting to me is that this, just take a look and notice if you have any emotional reaction to this. Cool. So I see a couple of people nod and a couple of people shake their heads. So when I first saw this, I was surprised that I actually noticed a little bit of emotional engagement with a dandelion. And it wasn't the, oh, I want to go pick it and make a wish. I have a million wishes to make right now. it was my brain went, oh, that's a like stimulus to the coronavirus image. And I did another lecture this morning, and it was really interesting when I put this up on the screen. I put this one up first. I was curious. This was kind of an A/B test. I love A/B testing. And I put this up and I go, does anybody notice anything when they see this image? And everybody's like, yeah, I don't like it. I used to love that. And it was really interesting because the amygdala now is going, anything that has spike is potentially harmful. Now, if you're a gardener, or you have you have dealt with rabbits in the past, you might have a little bit of antagonistic energy towards this anyway. But it's so fascinating to notice that our system, as we know, will generalize. And so the longer we allow any encoded experience to hang out on the amygdala, she will start to build layers and filters, that trauma filter that we talk about, that starts to result in agoraphobia or generalized anxiety disorder, the ongoing kind of greater expansiveness of stimuli becoming fear-targeted stimuli. So complex content right now is a really important piece, because if we look at even a sneeze, okay, a sneeze is right now a threat stimulus. But then walking into a room and seeing a crumpled tissue on the table, that's a generalization from that sneeze. Or I had a patient whose sister came home, and her sister's a physician. They lived together, and her sister walked in the door, and before her sister got more than 5 feet, she started screaming at her that she needs to strip off all of her clothes because she's in the hospital, and disrobe completely and put everything away. Now, that's fair to some extent, because her clothes could be contaminated. But a simple conversation turned into an overt screaming match the closer her sister came, or the more her sister moved into the house. Right? So her little amygdala is going, your proximity now could kill me, as opposed to recognizing that her sister was on the way to the laundry room, which required entering the house by 5 feet so she could turn and walk down the hall. So a lot of our clients and our patients are going to be experiencing this nebulous ability to make sense of the content that's in their present state. And so the more we can normalize this for people, the calmer they'll actually be. It's that old idea of knowledge is power. If you ever watch Schoolhouse Rocks, knowledge is power. And so just providing these tiny little data points, you're doing a public service. And it will help our patients or clients calm down across the board. And so we need to anticipate this generalization occurring. Anything that reminds us of a like stimulus is going to freak us out. And a huge part of that is because of this thing called the central nucleus. So everybody remember this from the training? Remember there's a couple of slides about those nuclei? And then on the science exam, and everybody's like, oh, I think I remember there was a basolateral. Well, the central nucleus is somebody who...
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question?
Oh, yes.
Knowledge is power. But if knowledge is power, we'll still get hijacked by a stimuli, which brings back the original trauma. So knowledge is not always as strong as we think it is.
Well, that's completely 100% correct, because knowledge is the 350 milliseconds.
Right.
Whereas the trauma is 75 milliseconds. And if we share the data with somebody prior to the hijack, once the hijack has resolved itself, rather than going into one of those reflective considerations of I'm crazy or I'm bad or shame or some sort of negatively affect neural network, their thinking brain can come online and go, oh, wait a minute. Dr. Ron told me about this. My brain's doing this because it's trying to keep me alive, or Amy's doing this because it's trying to keep me alive. And that increases the likelihood of moving into compassion. And that's one of the main reasons I call the amygdala Amy, is it's an objective part of the overarching self-experience. So it's me saying, and I had this moment happen just a couple of days ago with my husband, who I love dearly, but so sometimes I had temper tantrums. I'm a human, and I had a temper tantrum about something because he came in the house, hadn't stripped down completely. I'm autoimmune compromised. He's also died. Like our vigilance is through the roof. you now wipe your shoes down. Don't walk in the house with your shoes. And in that moment, because I was able to go, okay, my Amy's freaking out because I love him, then I was able to move into a state of compassion and immediately repair and approach him and say, hey, babe, I know I was just totally crazy. My amygdala is freaked out because she's worried that something's going to happen to you. And then we could make a joke about it. So that is such an actively powerful, it can be proactively powerful and help us change the situation once we're on the other side of it. So our central nucleus here, God bless it, it is, if y'all recall, a nociceptive nucleus, which means it tunes into pain specifically, but I really liken it to being in connection with any physiological experience that's happening while trauma is being encoded. So if you've ever worked with somebody who, well, I mean, if you guys have heard the story of Ron doing the work in Kentucky with the young man who had trichotillomania, who kept pulling his hair out, and who as a child had been itched so much because of a childhood ailment that he'd had his hands bound. So as Ron did that incredible work with that young man, and if you haven't seen the story, go look it up on Facebook. As he did the work, he reached over and he grasped the young man's wrists, and the young man's activation went through the roof, and then Ron was able to deactivate the amygdala, the encoded experience. The central nucleus played a core part in that encoding because it was holding onto that physical representation of the wrists. And so when we think about health anxiety and the coronavirus right now, how many physiological components might our brain be to that with the aid of this physiologically focused nucleus is going to be turning into a huge spotlight. So seeing somebody not wearing a mask out in public. I had that happen the other day when I went into the offices. There's a physical therapy program right next to our office, and somebody walked by and they didn't have a mask on, and I felt my heart rate go through the roof, because if I get it, my husband could get it and he could die, or as many of you know, my mom's been very sick. And so if now I felt like I have to quarantine for 2 weeks and she might die in that 2-week period before I go see her. That's my fear brain telling me these stories. So all of a sudden, somebody not wearing a mask is a very big fear stimuli. Somebody coughing, experiencing a sore throat. Even somebody drops, a person's been coughing. So see the layers of stimuli that our brain can start telling fear stories about. So we have to be really aware that we have a specific nucleus in our amygdala that's going, these physical things matter, and that's going to be telling these narratives. Additionally, 90% of every present moment is defined by the experiences of our past. So if anybody here has ever had a chronic illness, even if you're much now, or if you love somebody with chronic illness, I was just sharing about myself and my husband with his diabetes. Our fear filter is going to be exponentially higher. Our hypervigilance is going to be organically higher, because 90% of right now is being informed by what we've survived in the past. Now let's flip that on its head a little bit and look at this idea of isolation and loneliness. Does anybody here work with individuals who struggle with depression? What's a core facet of depression? Isolating, disconnecting, being alone, staying in bed all day. Okay. Well, what might people be doing right now? Well, social distancing, shelter in place, safer at home, actual full-on lockdown. So what are we being told we need to do? Isolate, disconnect, social, distancing. So if we have a historical neural network for depression, that neural network could be a little bit like a sleeper cell waiting to crawl back into existence, even if somebody's come out on the other side of a historical experience of depression. Because their brain's looking at the complex content of, wait a minute, when I'm all alone and I'm sleeping until 11 because I can, that usually means I'm depressed, right? So Amy's not bright, she's primal. She doesn't understand present day context. She's informed by this 90%. That's such a key number. And so if we go back to the history taking part of what we learn about havening, this is why that's so fundamentally important. Because somebody could be right now in 2020 have, you know, in our program, my teams and I call it they graduate from treatment, and we high five and we celebrate when people graduate. Like they've got their own back, they're in relationship with their brain, they don't need us. It's awesome. We're out of business in their lives. And yet right now, if there's any sleeper cells back there that didn't need to be addressed before, that 90% could come back on board. And also normalizing that for people, letting them know. So how do we be preventative? Because I think that's really the greatest gift we can give ourselves and somebody else is to not let those sleeper cells wake up. It's to move into deep relationship with our minds and our bodies. So Pat Ogden is a wonderful psychotherapist. She came up with the idea of the window of tolerance. Rick Hansen is kind of the foremost expert in resiliency, and he has the green brain idea. And it's this idea that when we're in agency with self and our nervous system is functioning at its best, then we can handle the waves that are coming at us. And that there's these kind of little small zones as we start to get pushed outside of our window of tolerance where our physiology, our biology, our neurology are going to start pinging us with data points. And so when I look at the 0 to 10 scale, that SUDS, a 0 to 5 is okay. And that's what I talk to my patients about. If you're at a 0 to 5 and we look at the Yerkes-Dobson scale, anywhere between a 0 and 5 is actually functional living. We need anxiety, we need stress. All, you know, as Ron's talked about a lot, eustress is a real thing. Positive emotions in and of themselves cause stress. So we want to be on that 0 to 5 scale, but if we're tipping over into a 6, we feel like we can't calm down. We're starting to feel agitated or we're impatient. You know, and that was me with my husband the other day. I was feeling impatient. I noticed I froze again, so I'm going to push a quick pause. There we go. I think we're back. Or we have, you know, an idea of shutting down or fatigue. Son of a gun. There we go. I see movement. I know I'm back now. Okay. I don't know at what point I cut out. But havening really empowers us to stay within the window of tolerance without even necessarily needing to do the deeper level trauma work. Now, we do want to do that work to help. I talk about clearing out the amygdala. That's what that work does. And the seminar that I'm hosting on the 20th with Echo Training, which is posted on the Facebook page, is all about teaching people to do their self-havening, to clear out low level, you know, 0 to 5 level traumas, to build resiliency and to be proactive about doing their own work. But that's, and that's what kind of one of the ultimate goals here for humanity, I honestly believe, is to empower all of us to know how to stay within this window of tolerance, so that as the waves of life crash upon us, you know, I keep joking, okay, we're in the zombie apocalypse now. So how do we stay strong in the zombie apocalypse? Now that we're in this space, how do we continue to empower resiliency and strength? And then as we start to move outside or around the window of tolerance, being really proactive about bringing ourselves back in. And that's what I call CPR for the amygdala, which is a slightly different take on event havening. But for those of us who know event havening, that's what it is. It's event havening without targeting anything except for the ambient moment. And saying, okay, Amy needs CPR right now, so I'm going to sing some songs, do some brain games, do some counting, and help her calm down, but we're not sourcing anything additional up. And just really important component here is it could be anxious, impatient, or fatigued, feeling like it's just hard to get out of bed today. It can go either direction. Mindful about the fact that it can go either direction. It doesn't have to just be activating. It can be calming, that's going to cause distress and disturbance too. So what we want to say, my overarching goal here is to really highlight that with health anxiety, we're all going to be living in a state for a little while where we're being requested to experience traditional biology as threatening, and to be mindful of that and super proactive to keep our system intentionally in the window of tolerance, and to teach the people that we love, that we serve, that we care for, that they will stay within the window of tolerance. And that, just like the dandelion showed, if you come home after somebody sneezed on you, or my experience with the elevator, take a moment and let Amy know that she's okay, that she can let that go. Because the more Amy's allowed to cultivate and hold on to these little tiny micro moments, they're like little microaggressions against Amy. And Amy's going to hold on to them and build and build and build and build and build until, guess what? She's living in the red zone. Our window of tolerance is small, and the red zone becomes our new normal. And that takes us back to the agoraphobia, the severe social anxiety, the pathology that we're seeing as people are opening, as the world's opening back up. Yeah, Ron.
So do you think it's necessary to do it in the moment, or do you think a kind of an end of the day sort of recap of all the stuff that happened will be useful as well?
Both. My general, what I know about neuroplasticity and what I call memory is that it works like muscle memory. So if everybody takes a moment, and I know we've all done that with our distractions, but imagine you're bouncing a basketball. And our brain has the memory for bouncing a basketball.
But sometimes we cannot in the moment do something, unfortunately.
No, of course. Yeah. So the reason.
So store it and deal with it later. If we don't go to sleep.
Well, notice it.
Yeah, if we don't go to sleep, we may not.
It won't reconsolidate.
We may not consolidate it at nighttime. So anytime before sleep, and bring those memories up, even at the end of the day, even if you couldn't deal with it, because we're not dealing necessarily with the reality, we're dealing with the reaction to it, I think. Exactly.
No, that's I mean, obviously you're one of my wisest mentors. I completely agree with that assertion. And one of the things that I think is really amazing is that the more often we take a moment to pause in the course of a day, even if it's just a acknowledgement with some hand havening, or washing our hands, the Facebook memes with the songs, right? Taking that moment to go, okay, wash this away, but I'm noticing that I have some energy. We're creating a space to anchor back into the historical, that moment in the day. Did everybody?
And I think it's also important, and especially in havening, is not to deny the issue, but rather embrace the issue so that you can haven it away. It's saying it's not a problem will not solve the problem. It just won't.
Oh, it makes it worse.
Often makes it worse.
Yeah, Amy hates when we lie to her.
Right.
So
Exactly. I think that is brilliant. That's exactly right. Amy hates me because she's smart. She's dealing with survival, so she doesn't want you to lie to her. It's okay to go in between the lions and tigers. They won't bother you. You're a bad body odor. They won't bother you, but that's not the case. Yeah. So
exactly. Yeah.
I think that's a very good point.
No, I mean, I'd like to invite everybody, because I'm pretty sure everybody here has done a lot of havening. And perhaps just notice havening. Don't actually apply the havening touch, but I want you to imagine that you're havening yourself. anybody notice it?
I like doing face havening by myself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, me too. Well, me too. In the moment when it's impossible to apply the havening touch for whatever reason, and maybe it's because you just touched something that your brain's going, do not touch yourself, you just touched the thing. Because we have built the motor and the neural memory, we can imagine havening and put our brains into a haven state. It's an incredible brain hack, and honestly, I think it's super, super ninja. Yeah, and that's my goal as we go through the day, finding those quiet moments to just check in on the ambient distress and go, where am I right now? Oh, I'm at about a 1. Okay. I'm just going to do a little love, and it could be doing some informational havening, bringing in some creating possibilities, or an affirmational havening. Or if we're noticing we're at a 4, it's, I do this all the time, and my team members, I see them walking through the halls doing this. They'll just walk down the hallway doing some hand havening, kind of bopping along to a song in their head. And it's just doing an intentional check-in of, yeah, well, I was at a 4, and so let's just bring that down. There's no need to hang out at that 4. And then to Ron's point, at the end of the day, we have a exercise that's a day review, and And Ron, the script you just sent me, and like I said, I just did a guided meditation for what you sent me with COVID for frontline responders, is doing a review with there's the microphone, with titration and breath work, where we're integrating distractions and the day review to help the system let it go and release and move to the end of the day. Yeah, Francis.
Okay, I just want to let you know, in case you didn't see the chat, quite a few people commented when you did the imaginary one that they could feel, plates moving in their head, they could feel tingling, they could feel the sensation, they could feel relaxed and things like that. So I just want to let you know that people were commenting on that.
Thank you. See?
Can I make a comment, Francis?
Sorry. Yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If you remember, Ron, when we were looking at focus band for the first time, which shows delta state instantly, in I think it was New York, we've been to so many, that there was a bit of technological hiccup, and I had the focus band on, and I was sat there imagining you havening me, and my delta state absolutely the roof.
Yeah. So Rebecca, who's on here somewhere, is my head of our neurofeedback program and leads all of our brain research. I don't know, Rebecca, if you want to pop up and say hey. I know you're here somewhere. But a huge part of what you are.
Well, Louise, one can certainly consider thought as being a form of sensory input, from working memory to the thalamus to wherever it wants to go. So, we don't generally think of thought as a sense, but it really has, we all know that thoughts can make us feel happy and make us feel sad and make us feel joyful. So how could it not be considered a sense? So in thinking about this, you have to view the brain as what I call a transceiver. It transmits and receives in and of itself. We just don't see the sensory organs because they're inside the brain. And I haven't gotten a haircut in 3 weeks.
So Kate, are you there? Hey, Kate. Kate? Oh, maybe.
She's working.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've just got a comment here from, I think it's Feather, who reports they had a client reporting using havening in their imagination because they were too lazy to apply touch at times when they were waking up. So that the way Kate just did that there, he has a client who uses it that way. Thanks, Feather, for sharing.
You got to be really lazy not to go like this.
I know
you got to be really lazy.
I did like the bit about the hand washing, of course, because that's something that we're using all the time, and just even including that motion when we're doing the hand washing.
Right. Just think about what's bothering you and wash your hands.
Yeah. I've actually got somebody else here has also mentioned, Sarah from New Zealand, mentioned even perhaps while you're driving, obviously focusing on the driving, but even in your head, you can maybe imagine that as well. What other ideas perhaps have other people got? Please feel free to share. Feel free to come off mute and add and contribute if you've got anything else. What have I got here?
While we wait for Kate to unfreeze herself.
I can say something real quick.
Yeah, absolutely, Scott. Please feel free.
Thanks. Just as someone who's suffered with severe depression, where there was a period of time where I was in bed and just wanted to die every day for a number of years, there are actually times when someone that's in severe depression really may not even have the energy. I don't know how to describe it. The energy to actually do the physical havening. It actually, like, you don't just feel pain and emotional pain, you feel physical pain, and it just seems to rob you of everything. So I think the imagination havening might be something, to try with someone who's depressed. And when you ask them, have you been doing your havening? And they say, well, I did it one day, or no, or, like that might be something to try. I haven't tried that, so I will.
Thank you.
Yes.
Oh, sorry, Ron, I wasn't sure if you were going to say.
Yeah. Depression alters many things. Motivation is among them.
Yeah.
Thanks, Scott. That's a really great idea for those of us that work with people with depression. It's something to really be mindful of and to think about with that. I'm just going to check the question box here as well. What have we got here? We've got a comment here from Karen. Part of the primitive Amy brain cannot tell the difference between what is an imagined or something that is real, hence the basis of anxiety. Trisha talks about an energy healer, Donna Eden, even said this too, for people who perhaps even have physical limitations as well, being able to visualize the actions, because obviously we know the power of visualization can also work for healing. Kishana from New Zealand, much of the havening process relies on the knowing that the unconscious mind doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality. Therefore, imagining havening makes perfect sense. There is a question here though, would imagination havening work if the person had never self-havened? Would there be no muscle memory? Ron, what's your thoughts on that perhaps?
I have absolutely no idea. It strikes me that if you've never been hugged, then which is unlikely, then you may not understand it from a physiological, imaginary point of view. I think there has to be some data that the brain can call upon for it to be effective.
Thank you, love. I appreciate you. Hello, everybody.
Welcome back, Kate.
I followed through on my threat to invite my husband, as in kick him off.
Oh. Welcome back.
All right. So I know we're moving into our practice group time, and so I just want to go through. I have like 2 more slides that I'd like to do. I don't know where there we go. So to the conversation I feel that we've been having, we have the capacity to build muscle memory for the havening touch. And the more intentional we are about havening on a regular basis, the more our brain will build in a freeway for moving into the haven state. And what an incredible gift that is for all of us, and to teach our patients to do that. So we want to be doing in the moment autonomic nervous system regulation with havening, just going, oh, there's a data point, which also, remember in trauma, our little insula goes offline. That's the brain body connection part. So the more that we go, oh, there's a data point, I'm noticing I'm a little off right now. And then we do a little havening work, we're enhancing the relationship or strengthening, actually building volume in our insula. Havening is such an incredible tool for changing the volumetric properties of different points in our brain. And that's some of the fMRI studies that we're doing here with Huntington and Pasadena. And so we want to be really intentional about teaching that to our clients and empowering them to have those gifts. So follow-up questions on where, so with health anxiety, like I said, our main thing is prevention is our best defense. And then as the practitioner, as the clinician, as the individual working with somebody who's coming into our office who's having a lot of symptomology around coronavirus, it's empowering them with knowledge. It's helping them give their brain space to move into a state of compassion and when they do get hijacked. And it's also recognizing, yeah, hijacks happen. I mean, I know a heck of a lot about the fear brain. And yeah, I still get hijacked from time to time, especially when it's about somebody that I love dearly being in harm's way. And, you know, it's building in the opportunity to have that connection and that compassion, and then really teaching them for ourselves. I'm sorry, I already said that point. And then being mindful of the 90% of the past coming into the present moment. So if somebody, as you're doing the work, you have your event target of, you know, coronavirus or an incident that happened with the coronavirus, but you're having a hard time jostling out of that, then we want to look at the past and find out what might be coming up that's tied into that. And I know we have two virtual trainings coming up. The one in New York, which is all day, 25th and 26th, and then the one in well, they're both virtual, but that will be based in LA, which is, you know, 4 days across 4-hour segments. We'll be unpacking telehealth and health anxiety a lot in that, because it is a really important piece of the work that we're all doing. And then when we are able to switch back into our regular physical trainings, we'll have a more traditional training. So, but let me just take a moment and talk about the Havening Hug Hack. This is something that I'm sponsoring as much as I can with everybody everywhere. I want this hashtag to just go viral, because when we look at the idea of social distancing, we are being asked to do something that Amy hates in a moment of stress, right? We're being told to not connect with the people that we love most in the world. And for, you know, my sister was telling me a story about one of her dear friends in New York where, you know, the EMT showed up and took away her friend's husband. And she's sitting there going, she never knows if she'll see her husband again, which for those of you who know my story, you know, I definitely have a heart pang about that. I'm thinking about that with my mom. As she goes back into the hospital, she could likely die. You know, we're all in these really weird experiences right now of, do we ever get to say hello or goodbye to our people again? And so we are blessed to have this technology, especially when it works. I'm very blessed to have a RT guy for a husband. And using the iPad, the iPhone, FaceTime, WhatsApp, Zoom to mirror the experience of giving our loved ones hugs right now when we can't, is not only going to be about connection, but will also decrease inflammation. And we know the coronavirus thrives in inflammation. That's one of the greatest set points for it. And so practicing with intention, when we get on a call with anybody, inviting in the self-havening touch and saying, hi, it's so good to see you. And inviting their little mirror neurons on board to say, oh, I'm getting a hug right now. And if they know havening, or it's an opportunity to teach them havening, for them to give you a hug back. You know, just like in many parts of Asia, especially those who've been through pandemics, you know, it's a cross and a bow, or it's a hands on heart hello, because they have been through this before. And so another intervention is I'm hugging you from afar.
We call that air hug.
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of air hugs, and which neurologically is similar, but this, with the mirror neurons, we get the serotonin and the GABA and the dopamine of the connection, especially when people are doing it together. And so it's the hug hack, the Havening Hug Hack. It's good to see you. I'm hugging myself because I'm imagining you hugging me. And we get
I'll take a hug even during coronavirus from you, so it's okay.
Air hug from LA to New York, Ron. I got you.
Oh, just got it.
So I really invite everybody, when you start, you know, whether it be a work-related call, a family dinner, I know everybody's finding really unique ways to participate with technology right now. And I saw, to Ron's starter point about funny memes, I saw a meme today of, you know, imagine if this was happening in 1992 and it was dial-up, Prodigy. You know, what would this be like? Prodigy would make a killing on all of us right now. Because I remember it used to be 25 cents a minute or something crazy. Yeah, Francis.
Thanks, Kate. Anne Caldwell has got a question she'd like to ask.
Yeah, of course.
And if you want to take yourself off mute.
Hi, I'm going into the hospital like usual. I'm a nurse specialist in heart surgery. What I'm struggling with at the moment is fatigue, and I'm looking after myself. Like, I'm sleeping lots. I'm, you know, looking after my diet. I'm trying to get outside and do yoga. But Ron, you mentioned something before, and I just wanted to pick up any sort of tips for fatigue, because we are on alert, and all the, you know, my colleagues are feeling the same.
Yeah.
Who's like me to answer this?
Take it, and then I'll chime in.
Okay. There are several phases of what's going on here. There's the acute phase, in which the first couple of days when you're isolated, you know, you can find ways of keeping yourself busy, but it's the chronic, inescapable stress of day in and day out, which landscapes the brain and causes fatigue. I know I am personally experienced it, having been now literally a month on lockdown here in New York. And I don't know if I'll ever think again. I mean, it's like a bizarre sort of process. So to the best of my ability, I'll do some work on the computer or this, but honestly, I feel just worn down by this whole process, and it affects how I think. Hopefully this is just temporary, and when this passes and we're out at the other side, this will all get better.
Yeah, and I mean, one of the words that really jumped out at me that Ron just shared is inescapable, right? What's Emily?
Yeah.
And when a traumatic experience is occurring, you know, we have that little dorsolateral prefrontal cortex, the little timekeeper in our brain that's freaking out. And that's why the inescapable of Emily is so, so, so powerful, because Amy's going, this is never going to end. And so she starts to bunker down and prepare for, I mean, literally the apocalypse. This is the end of days. And so keeping in mind that even this felt sense of fatigue is part of, and does everybody see the slide window of tolerance again? Okay. So Amy acts in the state of activation, as well as the shutting down when the activation becomes too much. She cycles. And so one of the things we'll do with our clients a lot is we'll have them focus on the somatic experience of the fatigue or the isolation, the loneliness, the exhaustion. And that is actually the target of the event havening. Because that's Amy going, I'm throwing up my hands, this is never going to end, and so I'm done. It's still an amygdala experience, just in a very different way than we're used to thinking about it.
In addition, you can have these types of experiences in your dreams as well. Your dreams and your nighttime sleep is not immune to Amy, excuse me. And in fact, a little embarrassing. I had this dream in which I was fighting with somebody. I don't know who I was fighting with, but I was fighting with somebody, and it was so violent I threw myself off the bed onto the floor, which is pretty unusual. And then I woke up on the floor going, "Who won?" I have a feeling the other person won, but I was lying on the floor, and it was just shocking. I mean, when is the last time you fell out of bed? Nuts. Our subconscious can continue to work on us, and even when we're sleeping. So Freud was absolutely correct. We don't have free will. Our subconscious rules.
Yeah.
Oh,
And in these times of very, very deep uncertainty, Amy's going to be running those choose your own adventure fear stories, and it's going to be specifically based on the role that each of us is playing within this. And you're playing a very, very important and powerful role.
So
And
let me just say that all of us on this meeting today are among the blessed people. You're blessed because you have techniques and technologies which you can share with others to help them. I can promise you it is no good to say, you know, don't feel sad or don't feel depressed or don't feel angry. That never works. But we have, when someone feels this way, we are blessed to be able to help them. And in the end, I think if one can believe that you're doing the best you can to help others, that is the best antidepressant I can think of.
yeah, and that we're doing the best we can to help ourselves and prioritizing that as well. And being in relationship and in a space of compassionate gratitude for the soldiering on that our minds and bodies are doing right now. You know, and in the COVID the guided meditation that I just did, it's all about saying, thank you, body. Thank you, mind, for showing up. This is really, really hard. And as that we're just giving ourselves a hug and saying, thank you. This is hard because it is really, really hard right now. And extending that gratefulness internally is really, really important for the healing process. Yeah, Francis.
Thanks, Kate. I just wanted to read a couple of comments just in case you haven't noticed them. Doug O'Brien has put a little link there to a Zoom guided imagery for a good night's sleep. So maybe copy and paste that and check that out before we finish today. Kishana Corsi, who's in Christchurch down in New Zealand, says, for whatever it's worth, I've been working online with a practice of exhausted midwives. We've been behaving using all of the ways they'd escape as a distraction, and afterwards they've reported increased energy and ready to go and catch babies again. And that's lovely. And Feather has said, this is the time to give ourselves the gifts of pursuing our most creative desires. She feels blessed to have a place in garden and asks think about what project gives you creative distraction. So I just wanted to share those in case you noticed those.
Thank you. And yeah, similarly, when we work with our clients or patients or my colleagues, honestly, I'm doing a lot of work with colleagues right now who are exhausted. We'll spend just 20 minutes of self-havening care, and their energy rebounds because we're moving into it. It's like, hey, Amy, I see you. You're right. This is hard and exhausting, and that exhaustion makes sense. And let's help you shed that skin, so to speak. And that again, that's part of the reason why I call the amygdala Amy, is so I can be in loving relationship with her. Yeah. So thank you, Anne. That was a really, really powerful and important conversation. I really appreciate that. So hug hack, please just be really, really mindful. And I think as the conversation that Anne brought up, giving yourself the havening hug, extending gratitude to your mind and body, because this is hard. This is really, really hard. And one of the things my team and I are in constant conversation about is that in desperate times, the desperate nature of humanity is going to come crawling out of the woodwork in ways that we probably haven't ever witnessed. I mean, I know I haven't in my lifetime. And so when we are giving ourselves gratitude and kindness and understanding and love, we are able to hold more space for the people who are having a hard time and to be supportive and empowering of them as well.
Hey, do you have a link to your video?
I do. I don't know how to access it right now without everything crashing since I'm having internet difficulty, but I will post it on the Facebook page for everybody just as this wraps up.
Great. You can also look on the Facebook page for Paul's piece. It's way down the list. You have to scroll down for a little while, but Paul did a beautiful job.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, mine's a lot long. Mine's like 11 minutes. Mine's a lot longer than Paul's. I don't know how he does it so quick. I'm all like, be in relationship with breath and build resilience. So, yeah.
He did it in 1 minute and he did it in 1 minute and 45 seconds.
I know. Impressive. So I know I'm kind of over time, so I just would like to put our information up as I've shared throughout this, and as you may have seen on the Facebook page or have heard. On April 20th, I have Echo Training here in Los Angeles, which provides phenomenal workshops and services for the underserved, has asked me to come and do a 4-hour self-havening workshop. This used to be an entire day self-havening workshop, and this is one of the slide decks that I've been in talks with Fee, Ron, and Steve about turning into a full day training. So this will be a little abbreviated because as a neuroscientist, I'm so careful about screens and brains. But it's accessible, and all the proceeds go to sponsor the nonprofit. And you have to head off, Louise.
Yeah, I just want to say good. Oh, sorry.
Bye. Thank you. Sweet dreams.
Louise,
Yeah.
It's Frances. Before you go, do you want to just mention about your practice group next week? Louise?
Oh, unmute yourself, my dear.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you.
Perfect opportunity if you'd like to do that.
Sorry, I missed that.
If you'd like to just share about your practice group next week and what you'll be doing, that'd be great. Thank you.
Briefly. We've, in the London group, we've started about 2.5 years ago exploring working with birth trauma, tocophobia and so on. And Alison Shallow, who is very experienced midwife, is going to, Tony's introducing it, I'm being involved in it, but Alison is going to demonstrate how she has developed her work with birth experiences using role havening. And one of the most interesting experiences as a trainer I had in looking at Alison's case studies was that she almost right from the word go started doing role havening with her clients. So huge amount of skill and experience there. So we're going to be sharing that with you next week. So often students find going into role havening a bit of a jump. So it's to open that opportunity for people with that specific area in mind for this session. So we look forward to anybody who wants to join us next week.
Thank you, Louise. Appreciate it. And we look forward to joining you.
Sweet dreams.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you. And additionally, so we have the 20 seminar, which is really low cost. And then, as everybody knows, we have the 2 virtual trainings coming up, Ron and Steve. And then we'll be hosting ours in 4 segments across the 25th and 26th of April and May 22nd and 23rd. And as you can tell, I'm a total brain geek, and so we'll be diving really deep into neuroscience. And we have a number of expert neuroscience physicians, doctors who are coming on board to lead the breakout groups. So it'll be really exciting. So I love that havening. We're all coming together to just propagate as much as we can and support bringing this forward, because there is no better time for havening. Like I said at the beginning of the telecommuting havening webinar, I feel like Steve and Ron just manifested this for this moment. We have it in our hands, and let's share it with the world. It's a phenomenal thing. So with that, I will tap out unless there's questions, and I'll turn it back over to Ron and Frances.
I need to tap out as well, but thank you so much, Kate. You're wonderful as usual.
Kate,
try to be your star in your shadow.
Kate, is it possible just to stop sharing your screen just for 1 second?
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you.
Give me 1 quick second.
Brilliant. Then we can see everybody.
Yes, now you can see everybody. Yay!
Yeah, you can see everybody. Kate, I know you're going to tap out now. I just want to let you know that there's lots of messages coming in to thank you, and of course yourself, Ron, for being online today and for sharing not only your time with us, but your expertise with us about that. I know for myself, I've taken lots from it and lots of things that I'm going to go and share. And in particular, I loved about Amy doesn't like being lied to. Yes. That's very cool. I really love that. And also about, the imaginary havening and the the hug hack, I shall do my very best to share that, as I'm sure everyone else will online. In New Zealand, we have a saying that says, it's kia kaha, and kia kaha means stay strong. So thank you, Ron, thank you, Kate, and thank you anyone else who's going to tap out. I know that it's 2-3 o'clock in the morning, some places where people are. So I just wanted to say thank you very much for sharing your time and your expertise, and kia kaha.
And thank you for setting it all up as well.
Oh, you're welcome. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Thank you, Kate. Thank you, Ron.
Bye all.
Thank you.
I was actually planning on staying for the breakout groups.
Yeah, awesome. Brilliant. Oh, right. When you said tapping out, I thought you meant you were going to like.
I know. I was just passing the buck back to you,
Oh,
as we
right.
say in Kansas. You're now in charge of the cow.
All righty. Thank you, Kate. I appreciate that. I've got that now. Thank you. Well, first of all, thank you. Thank you so very much. And please, if there's anyone else who'd like to unmute and share any of the learnings or takeouts, something that you loved, something that you shared, something that came up for you for now, please feel free to take yourself off mute and have a chat.
Good night. See you soon. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Borada. Anybody got anything? Bye. Bye. Okay, that's somebody else who's dropping out. Laura, Robin, is that you've got a question? Just take yourself off mute, really. Just, it's hard to check everybody because there's 50 odd people.
Just, Kate, just the whole thing about the smile. I'm not sure if you're aware of Qigong, and they use this process called the inner smile. And it's like taking that smile that you saw and taking it into your body and swallowing it down through all of your organs, through your heart, your lungs, your spine, your liver, your reproductive, and then taking any excess energy into your dung tian, which is right above and below your navel, and holding that energy there for the day. And then taking another smile and taking it up into your brain and just allowing it to take that energy through your body and down your spine. And then you start and take it out to your greater being, out to the your community, out to your country, out to the universe. So maybe you might like to, some people might like to incorporate that and even take it further.
I was not familiar with that. Robin, would you mind popping that in the chat box so people know what to look for, and we can all explore it a little further?
And I'll have a little explore and see if I can find the actual script.
Wonderful.
I know our trainer here in New Zealand, Dr. Richard Bolstad, he actually introduced me to that, and a lot of other people in New Zealand who were training to be NLP practitioners. So there'll be a lot of people aware of that. They can start and incorporate it as they haven and just build it even more.
Wonderful. Thank you for bringing that up. I did not know.
Thank you, Robin. I can see there's a lot of comments there. You might just want to make a note. There's a few people making different comments about where you can get that. Even something from Spike Milligan, a British comedian who's written something about smiling is infection. So there's a number of places that could be found. But Robin, if you could do that, I'll certainly post it on the face page for Havening HQ and also on the Havening Kiwis page as well. So is anyone else? Yeah, sorry,
I was just going to add, Marsha Linehan has a version that's part of the dialectical behavioral therapy as well. For those of you who are DBT trained, might ring a bell. So,
right.
Sorry, Feather, I just cut you off.
No, please, look, there's quite a few people. Anyone else got a feather? I can see you've come off. Yeah, you got a question? Shane?
Well, I have a couple of comments about my own practices and experience. I've been studying with a karma healing doctor for a while. He's a Sufi, and he's been giving us practices that are in that realm, and they're spiritual practices, and some of them I do while I'm havening, which I find kind of cool and interesting. And the other thing I wanted to share was I have a client who's very experimental with me, very much likes to try new things around using havening techniques. And we did something for the distraction, which I did with a delegate who was training, somebody who's working on their certification. I had never had this distraction technique used before, and I don't know who his trainer was, but this didn't happen in my training. The distraction was he asked me to name 10 things that I loved. So with my client, knowing that he's very, his senses, particularly around smell, are very acute, I decided to ask him not only to tell me things that he loved, but things that he loved smelling. And he reports being able to haven himself into experiencing the smells that he loves.
Yeah.
And that is incredibly soothing to him. Yeah. Because if we think about what we know about the sense of smell and how direct that is, the memory of smell is pretty awesome and powerful.
Absolutely.
So I just thought I would share those two things as ways. And I'm actually not living at a 5. I'm down there around 0 and 1, which
haven it. And your internal resiliency.
Yeah, I'm feeling pretty darn good. The hardest thing I've done is go out to get groceries, and I've only done it, I think, once in the last month. So feeling very happy to have havening, definitely. So thank you.
And thank you so much for sharing that. And the olfactory piece is so powerful. As we know, olfaction is the only sense that goes straight into the amygdala. And now that being said, my one caveat of caution is that Amy will pervert positive stimuli if she's in a hyper overactive state. She has a really, not will, that's a really strong statement. She has a really powerful opportunity to do that. And so if our patients or clients are above a 6, I always recommend staying with a neutral stimulus before we move into a positive stimulus. Because Amy's going to, if she's too activated and engaged, she could flip something positive into something negative. And this is really particularly important for anybody who works with people who have pretty severe trauma, developmental trauma, or complex trauma. Because she's got a myriad or a maze of neural networks that she can tap into in any single moment. And so until we get down to about a 5-6 with Amy, then I highly recommend staying neutral before we transition into positive. Because one of the greatest heartbreaks is to have somebody's positive experience become tainted because Amy's going, actually, that used to be positive, but now it reminds me of XYZ that happened back in the day. Whether that be a dog that used to be a really wonderful felt sense, even though the dog had passed on, but you access the dog as a memory for a distraction, and when she's at a 7, and all of a sudden the grief of losing that dog overwhelms and overpowers. And so there's a lot of different experiences.
You're saying use a different kind of distraction. Don't use that sensory as a distraction positive until you've already brought, if we're working to lower SUDS, in this case I wasn't working the lower SUDS, but so the SUDS was already fairly low. And because I do a lot of, I guess, positive work, half of it is to be positive, and maybe that's, but what you're saying is be very careful if you don't have that SUDS system down.
Yeah, well, and yes, thank you, Feather, for clarifying that. So careful and mindful. We, in our team meetings, we talk a lot about how will we know somebody's system or their brain. Now, if we know that somebody has a really resilient brain that's not going to tip over into darkness very quickly, and I mean, obviously it's a really colloquial consideration, then we'll stay neutral. So usually the first 1 to 3 sessions, we stay more neutral. But if somebody has, if we go back to the idea of ACEs, if somebody has an ACEs of 4 or more, above a 5-6, we stay neutral. So, that's just brain games, singing songs, counting numbers, are more traditional distractions before bringing in a more personally connected element of, now, like for me, I had the most amazing therapy dog. I took him to the VA every single day. The only reason the vets respected me was because of my dog, Roscoe. And yet when he passed, it was devastating, but we had a great relationship across the course of his life. So he's a great distraction as long as I was at a 5. But above a 5, my energy would go into the loss of him and the relationship that I had with this dog, as well as the fact that my late fiance and I got Roscoe together. So it's balancing the relationship with the stimuli and being mindful that if Amy's at a 5 or above, she could pervert it. And once Amy gets involved and puts a negative, scary, any sort of framework around it, then we actually have to go in and do additional havening to unwind that. And so in terms of really clinical terms, it's a session lost in my point of view. It's like, oh, now we have to do another session to possibly have to do another session to unwind that. And so it's just leading with caution with the distractions and then leaning into self-agency once we get to, 5, 6 or below.
So I actually have a session scheduled tomorrow. I'm in lockdown, and I'm in lockdown with a friend from 39 years of friendship. And it started with, he actually rescued my son from a near drowning accident. And he is immune compromised. And we have a session where he just told me today, and I've been here for a month, that he had a premonition 20 years ago that he's going to die from a virus. He's an immune compromised person.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of thinking, wow, this is a real important thing for me to know. And do you have any hints? Because this is pretty direct. I mean, besides what you've already shared with us, maybe if you had any hints.
Yeah. Has anybody else had anything along those lines for yourself or other?
No? Do you mean along the?
Well, just as somebody, yeah. I mean, just the idea of I'm going to die from this.
Yeah, I mean, I have an immune thing. My sister has an immune thing, and it's something we're really aware of because it's respiratory. So I know I have. Yeah, I actually woke up the other day. I would say I was actually quite resilient from all the different things, like yourself, Heather. Really quite low down. But even the other day, I woke up in the middle of the night just with this thought, like, "Oh my goodness, I'm going to die because I have a lung condition." And it passed as quick as it went. But it was interesting that my brain was consciously processing all the information and all the stuff I was learning from my friends who are doctors about you have to stay in, you've got to look after yourself, don't see anybody, don't go to the shops. And my brain had obviously been processing that. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Feather. So I'll be interested to know, Kate, what other advice you have for Feather in terms of working with her friend.
Yeah, I mean, I can certainly connect with that, having survived encephalitis, and I have a grenade in my brain that could go off at any point in time. And I hear that from a lot of my clients who are immunocompromised, who, even people who have lupus who've been taking hydrochloroquine as their primary mechanism to stay alive, and now they cannot have access to it. I mean, there's so many different versions of how this health anxiety is kind of unfolding around us. And so your friend having this premonition, Feather, my recommendation, this is something I've done a lot of work myself on, is noticing the somatic anchor of the felt truth. And that felt belief. So it's not necessarily an acute memory. And in the training, we talk a lot about how do we separate explicit memories from implicit memories and use them as different targets. But this is the felt sense of this, and that becomes the target experience. And then using our depending on where they are in the SUDS, using, we call the 3-item distraction technique, but the distractions to bring them down. And it sounds like you might be working in person, so the more traditional protocol of being able to transition to transpirational havening at a 5. And then we ask that felt sense of, if you had a message from me, what would the message be? And I know in the course of my own work, my message has been, I'm going to die. And then, excuse my French, I have a very powerful fuck you part, and that's the I'm a cockroach part. And so I've done my TH on the I'm going to die until my fuck you, I'm a cockroach part shows up. Because I've had 9 near-death experiences at this point. And when that part shows up, I'm like, oh, there's my phoenix. Okay, I got it. And then anchoring into that. And so it sounds like your friend has something that's kept them going forward to this point, and that's the resiliency piece. And so it's like the felt sense has a message. and that I TH the message of that part. What is that part really needing to be heard within? And then the rule of three.
Phoenix.
What's that?
Finding the phoenix.
Oh yeah, yeah. Phoenix up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, because he is an extremely resilient person. I mean, we both are. We're both survivors. Many surgeries. We've been in. Actually, I've been with him when he was in anaphylactic shock. He's allergic to peanuts, like deathly allergic to peanuts. I mean, so identifying that you have had near-death experiences, this is the same kind of situation.
Yeah, and right now, in a way, we're all living in a world of a possible near-death experience. You know,
Right.
The touching of a doorknob and accidentally itching the face, you know, and you know, being kind and compassionate within that. Yeah. So, but yeah, the phoenixing up. So, you know, we all have resiliency. And so my goal is always to work with my patients to find that resilient, whatever the motto is. For me, it really is Phoenix up. But whatever their motto is, and to help the system release the message until we get there. And, you know, we've had those moments where the prefrontal cortex starts to come in and loop back around and sharing the powerful moment as we do the TH. So, you know, I'm angry, I'm scared. We follow scared all the way to the end. Next thought, maybe now I'm sad, and we follow sad all the way to the end. And eventually, as we follow those neural networks with TH, our thinking brain is going to start to have the opportunity to provide reflective, positive considerations. And that's what the protocols are designed for. So, you know, the rule of three of the distractions, the rule of three of transpirational havening, to get us back to the state where our thinking brain is no longer being convoluted by our fear brain, and instead they're having a healthy communication. Because we need Amy, we just don't want her running the show.
Right.
Yeah, thank you for that. I know that so many of us are experiencing this, or working with people who are experiencing this. As a really important question.
It's pretty strange because this is a relationship that's very long time, but there's been a big separation, and I ended up in this situation totally by accident. I was supposed to be house sitting for them, and instead I'm here and being part of the scene, and it's almost like the gift that we got from havening is now been given to me to work with the situation.
Yeah, and what a gift.
Yeah.
So I just looked at the time and I realized, I know that we're supposed to have an hour for breakout, and here we are still chatting away.
It's all really important stuff, isn't it? I think everybody would agree that what we're hearing in terms of the conversations and what you're sharing with us, Kate, and what everybody else is contributing, and Feather, the people in the comments, it's all really, really important stuff that's going to serve us going forward in our days, and the people that we're working with. So if anyone wants to stay online and do, you know, a 15-minute sort of practice, I'm more than happy to hold the space and for us to do that. But I was also wondering, Kate, I noted, and I may have misunderstood, that you had like a little guided meditation. I mean, if you wanted to wrap up with the guided meditation, is that about 10 minutes? How does everybody feel? Would that be something that would be okay? Hands up? Yeah, beautiful. That sounds like that'd be a wonderful way to wrap it. If you're happy to do that, Kate, I just think that would be a lovely way to wrap up the conversations. And while you're just putting that and getting that online, I'd just like to again thank everybody for your contributions, for the comments that you've put in, for your questions, and just for your presence really of being here and holding the space for everyone today. So thank you very much for that. And we'll just wrap up with a little meditation, if we may, Kate. That'd be lovely. Absolutely. Thank you.
Absolutely. And just a quick plug for those of you who are very neuroscientifically oriented and you'd like to do a review, you know, come join us for the online training, you know, the 4 modules. And, you know, we get super, super geeky. And of course, you know, I'm working very closely with headquarters, and so the same thing applies. If you pay for this training, you're grandfathered into any trainer's training. And so if you just would like to come hang out and get really geeky with us for a while, please feel free to do that. My husband's so cute. He's literally tiptoeing into his office to not disturb me.
Pass our thanks on to him.
Honey, that's my phone. That's not your phone.
Scott's, sorry, Kate. Scott is asking, when is your particular training? What dates are your one?
So it's basically what happened. The context is we had a full LA training and New York had a full New York training because Ron, Steve, and I usually geek out in terms of training on the same weekends so that we could compare notes after. And so since the virus happened, we decided that we were going to keep both trainings and do an A/B testing. So they're doing their training in one full weekend, and then we're doing ours the 25th and the 26th of April, and the following weekend, which is May 2nd and 3rd, I believe, and I'll have several of my team members and co-trainers there leading breakout groups and guiding us. But ours is 8:30 to, or 8 to 12:30, I believe, for 2 Saturday and Sunday blocks. And so
people could register. Oh, sorry. I was just sorry, a little bit of a time delay. People could register for that or get more information from the at the Havening website on the portal.
Yeah, I need to get Josh to update it. I've been a little busy, but I just popped in my training website, which is vivaexcellence.com.
Mm-hmm.
And I also have people are training to be trainers from the Department of Defense who'll be joining us, people who facilitated trainings for us for me and hosted me in Virginia, Kansas City, Alaska, Canada. So it's going to be pretty fabulous, but I'm biased, so take it with a grain of salt.
Thanks for the invitation, Kate. Yeah, it'd be great. And if we can just see ourselves out today with the meditation, I think that'd be a
let's see ourselves off with see ourselves off a little. So this is a specific guided meditation for literally for all of us, because we're all on the front lines. And this is about this very real reality that we are, as a rule, holding space for those who are going through troubled times right now. And so whether or not you're working with somebody who's a nurse or a physician, you are yourself are a nurse or a physician, this is about taking a breath and saying, thank you, mind and body, for the work that you're doing. Thank you, mind and body, for holding space for others so that they can continue to serve. And thank you for being altruistic, because altruism at its core is a hard choice to help everybody else. And so I'd like to invite everybody to start with a gentle havening touch. Again, hands, arms, face in any order. We're going to begin with just noticing our breath and the count of our own organic breath. Gently breathing in and out. And being curious about the count that feels most comfortable for you. Sometimes the count of our breath is counting as we inhale to a 4, a slow, easy cadence. Perhaps you might be an athlete or a dancer, and a count of 8 is your organic breath. We're just noticing with interest the breath as we breathe in, the pause that organically happens following the inhale, and the slow, easy exhale. And thanking our body for knowing just how much breath we need in this moment. And inviting ourselves to slowly deepen that breath. Anchoring our mind and our body a little more into this present moment. And when you're ready, I'd like to invite you to go on a journey across the past day or days. Invite your mind to start wandering past the moments and noticing, what has Amy tagged as important? And as each moment, as each stimulus makes itself known to you, take a pause. Welcome that moment forward and breathe into it. Express gratitude to Amy and say, thank you for knowing this moment Thank you for remembering this. Thank you for the data of this moment, even if it's hard data. There's a lot of hard data right now, a lot of difficult moments. And thank Amy for sharing these moments with us. And as you continue to breathe, when you're ready, invite a gentle exhale and release that moment. And move on to the next. And as you continue to move through the moments of your day, with each pause, extend the same gratitude to Amy. And then expand it to your mind and your body. Say, thank you, Amy. Thank you, mind. Thank you, body. Thank you for helping me get through this hard moment. Thank you for remembering it so I can learn what I needed to learn. And then let her know that we're here now. Let her know that that moment has passed, that it has come to an end, and we are present in this moment. Extending the hugs and the gratitude. And keep allowing your mind and inviting your mind to navigate these experiences, stopping, being present with each one. Extending gratitude towards each difficult moment, extending acknowledgement. Once the moment has passed and Amy has been seen and held, taking a deep breath in. And with the exhale, letting that moment pass on, knowing that that moment is no longer and that we are here now. Now I'd like to invite you to shift your attention back into this present moment, knowing that if there are more moments, you can revisit them and give them the same gratitude and love. But in this moment, ask yourself, what moment, what energy would you like to have present right now? What energy can you bring forward to give Amy some love, yourself some love? What can you bring into this moment to connect to and be present with? It's going to support you in having some space. Once you've found your chosen energetic state, take a moment and be really curious and ask, what if I was? And complete that sentence with your chosen state. What if I was calm, relaxed, energized? For those of us where it's early morning, sleepy, what if? Gently breathing into that possibility. And again, acknowledging, what if I was? Invite your mind to find a time in your life where you felt this way. Maybe many months ago, many years ago, maybe just a couple minutes ago. And bring that experience front and center. And thank your mind for having this neural memory, the ability to connect into this positive experience. And the capacity to be present in this way. What if I was, and now as you're connecting to this experience where you've been this way before, perhaps I can be. I deserve to be. I will be. And finding a mantra that fits and connects for you in this moment. And breathing in the energy of that past experience. Does it have a color, a temperature, and energy? Welcoming it in. And once again, taking a gentle breath in and noticing perhaps I am. If this new reality, this energetic state right now fits. And allowing the authentic truth of Amy to be present, whatever feels best for her. What if I can be, I will be, I am. And again, inviting this energy to be a part of this moment and to follow you into the next. And when you're ready, let's return to our breath, taking another gentle inhale, welcoming in, calming air, noticing the capacity of our body to breathe and know how much breath we need. And this slow, easy exhale as we return to this moment and open our eyes. Thank you, Francis, for hosting. And
I can just hear some beautiful birds somewhere. Not quite sure if anyone else can. Are
over
they
there.
yours? Are they yours?
They are ours. They are ours.
That was so beautiful. Just as you finished, all you could hear was the beautiful, beautiful sound of those birds. It was just perfect. Wonderful timing. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Kate. We absolutely appreciate your time today. I know how busy you are. We wish you well for the next few weeks, and obviously with your training, I know it will be a great success. On behalf of everybody on the group, but please feel free to come off your mics as well if you want to say something. I'd like to say kia kaha, and thank you for everything.
Thank you, everybody, for having me.